Mind grabbing that chuck that's up there on the top?
Oh.
The chuck. If you could grab Chuck. Chuck!
Chuck!
Come here, this. Who's Chuck and why is he helping us? I taught my beautiful wife, Nicole, someone who has zero woodworking experience, how to make this. If you want to see what that process was like, then definitely stick around. And also, if you're a beginner woodworker, then this video is exactly what you need. This is awkward. Okay, so we are going to build a base cabinet. Okay. The base cabinet that I'm going to teach you how to do is like the simplest possible construction, using very minimal things. For example, for this cabinet, we're going to use a lot of pocket holes.
Okay.
We are going to assemble the face frame. We're going to put it on there. But I want to talk a little bit about material, and I want to talk a little bit about sizing, basically. So one, you can see everything's already cut, okay? I did that because I just want to explain to you how to go about doing the construction. We don't need to worry about the cutting part, but you will cut some of the stuff for the face frame. Now, a standard base cabinet is total height minus the top is usually 34.5 inches.
Okay.
And that is with the toe kick and the cabinet itself. So there's two ways that you can make cabinets. You can make cabinets with a toe kick built into it. So basically I'd be cutting these notches and then each cabinet individually would be the 34.5 inch height. Mm-hmm. But the downside to that is that you have to level every single cabinet, and that's time consuming and dumb, quite honestly. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna build a cabinet under the assumption that we would build a separate platform called a toe kick or a plinth, and we would just level that and then we would place these boxes on top of it. Okay,
so 34.5 minus the toe kick then.
Right, which is typically going to be 4 inches.
Okay.
Now, if we were doing this in metric, if I build a base cabinet, I do a 100 millimeter toe kick, which is roughly the equivalent to 4 inches, and I do a 768 millimeter cabinet. It's a multiple of 32, and the two of those together equal roughly 34.5 plus your 1.5 inch top, and now you have cabinet kitchen counter height of 36 inches, which is pretty standard across the board.
Okay.
So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to discuss what the parts are and we're going to label them.
Okay.
So that's what you'll see. You see the tape on here. Labeling is not just because this is the first time you're doing it. Labeling is just a benefit in general so you don't lose track. I label everything that I do. So the parts that we have is this is going to be the backer. Mm-hmm. And this is the first big difference in most cabinets that I build. We're actually going to use a 3/4 inch backer that's just going to get attached to it. We have the bottom of the cabinet here. We have the two sides of the cabinet here. And then these are two stretchers that are going to go across the top.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Labeling.
Yes. I like to use, now you can do this a bunch of different ways. You can just mark on the plywood with pencil. However, in this scenario, we don't want to do that because we're using pre-finished plywood. Mm-hmm. If I ever have the opportunity to use pre-finished plywood on a project, on a cabinet, I will choose it because it saves me the trouble of having to finish it.
Okay.
There are some downsides to it. One of those, if you're somebody that feels like you must absolutely use glue for assembly, this is not a good material to use because the glue doesn't stick very well to this surface. We'll talk about all that when we put it together.
Could you still paint that if you wanted to? Or no, that would make...
You actually could paint it, but you would want to scuff sand it just a little bit. And this actually creates a very nice surface to paint because it is so smooth.
Okay.
Right? So it's already been finished at the factory, right? So you can do this both ways. But this is just nice because if you're doing frameless application, or even like we're going to do today, which is face frame, the only stuff that you have to finish is your face frame, your door, and your drawer front.
Okay.
So the inside is easy. You build the boxes, you finish all the other stuff, slap it on there. So we're going to go ahead and mark these. I like to use a permanent marker just because it's more visible. So we're going to be back, right? What was this one?
The bottom? No.
That is the bottom. Correct. And then we're going to do, what are these?
Like the insert, like pins?
Almost like that, yes. Stretchers is also a word for it.
That's also not how you spell it, but nice try.
Yeah, I'm not good at English. And then what were these?
That's the side panels.
Side panels. Okay. So the next step is to start talking about construction. So the dimensions of this cabinet are, the total depth is going to be 24 inches. That's also very, very common on base cabinets in a kitchen. But when you're figuring out the measurements, you have to keep a couple things in mind. One, what kind of backer are you using? In this scenario right here, we're using a solid backer that will attach to it. So it's going to add 3/4 of an inch to the distance. Plus, in this case, we're doing face frames. So that's going to add 3/4 of an inch in the front.
Okay.
Right? So you just take the 24 minus the 1.5 inches, and then that's what your, the depth of your sides and the depth of your bottom are going to be.
Okay.
Now this is a single base cabinet, meaning it is only going to have a door and a drawer, and it's one individual unit. Another very common one that you're going to find is a base double, right? Which is just basically twice as wide as this, roughly, and then has 2 doors that open up, so it gives you a lot more storage space. But we're just going to do a single here. So we got a side over here, we have a side that's going to go over here, and the way that we're going to attach that, what I'm doing right now, actually, it's a good teaching moment. I'm going to lay these out the way that they're going to get assembled,
Okay.
right? Because it gives us a better visual of what it is. And the reason I'm showing you this is because if you look here at the grain and you look here at the grain, see how it has that little character or that color in it? Well, this side doesn't. And you can choose if you want this to be the interior portion of the cabinet, right? Which in this case, I wanted to show you the differences. I want it to be the same because this is what we're going to be using for the inside. See how it's very clear, it's very even in tone.
So you want that to match?
Correct. So
Okay.
those are going to be on the outside. Make sense?
Like this is the outside?
Yep, that's the outside of the cabinet. So basically we're just taking it and we're going boom, up here. And then once it's up there, we'll have a stretcher that's in the top, we'll have a stretcher that's in the back, and then we'll add the back piece. Now, we have to do pocket holes. And so here's where we can go ahead, and probably for this video, let's just go ahead and mark it up so you know where the pocket holes need to go. So we obviously don't want pocket holes in here.
Because you can see them?
Because you can see them,
Okay.
right? And it's also about the angle in which the pocket screw is working. So if we put it on here going down, it's getting a very low part on the material here, so it's actually a weaker joint, as opposed to if we go from down here, it's going higher up into the material, which will make it a little bit stronger.
Okay.
Okay? So for doing this, we can just flip this over. And what's great about doing pocket holes, where's my pencil? I should probably be wearing my sedgley.
I should probably be wearing a sedgley.
You probably should be. I've got one for you. All right. So this pencil, because this is pre-finished, if we really wanted to, we could just go back with a wet rag and just wipe it all off. You know, it'll come off fairly easily. But we just want a visual. It didn't come off. It did. But we just want a visual of where these are going to go, right? Because there's 2 reasons why the visual helps. One, you know where to put it, obviously. And the second part is you can get, you immediately know what side needs to be facing you when you're doing the pocket holes. So you don't mess up, because that's easy. People can do that, right?
Okay.
So in this scenario, let's just say we're going to go here. And then I'm just going to space it out. We'll just say 8 inches or so.
But like, is there a set number? Like you should do 4 or you should do 5?
There isn't. The more, obviously, the stronger it's going to be. In this scenario, you know, maybe I would do 5 and maybe just space these out just a little bit more.
And then
right?
probably also not be too close to the sides?
No, that's fine.
Oh, okay.
You don't want to be, that's a good question. You wouldn't want to be like right here.
Right.
Because when you cut it, it could show in the front. So we'll go with 5.
Okay.
Right? We're not using glue for this. It's only a mechanical bond. Now, people freak out and they're like, oh my God, you didn't use glue on your cabinets, right? Whatever. It's sitting on top of a base, right? So the shear strength argument is irrelevant. It is unneeded. And in this application, it doesn't make any sense because we're using pre-finished. So we're going to go here. Let's go ahead and get rid of that one just so there's no confusion. Here, 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 and there.
Okay.
They do not need to match. They do not need to be in line with each other because they're completely invisible. So that's the first thing that's labeled.
Now I'm ready.
There you go. Yeah, let's put these on because I already know what's going to happen. We're going to be doing this over and over and over again. I'm going to be like, where is my...
And that's why you need a sedgley.
Yep. She's wearing the mini sedgley, everybody. I've got the full-size sedgley.
I need stuff in my sedgley.
Yeah, you need some pencils. Here, you want a tape measure? That's actually going to take up all the space. Maybe just one pencil. Anyway, let's get back to it. All right, so there's a couple other things that we need to have pocket holes on. Traditionally, if I was doing this and it was a frameless cabinet, I wouldn't need any on the sides at all.
Okay.
However, because we are doing a face frame, we need to add some pocket screws because that is going to be how we actually attach the face frame to it after it's all built.
Okay.
It'll just make it a lot more simple. So for that, remember, this is the inside.
Right.
Okay. So in this scenario, we want...
So now we also have to decide which part is the front, because that's
Correct.
Okay.
Right. And now that's also a very good question. Something you can do to remind yourself which is the front, just make a mark on it.
Okay.
Because then you always know, like, this is my reference face. So for here, we're just adding some pocket screws for the face frame.
Okay.
Okay? We're going to do the same one on that. Now, do you see how you flipped that over?
I did. That's why I was going to ask if it matters, so I need to do it this way.
Correct. I mean, it doesn't matter this early.
Right.
But however we lay it out, that's how we want to make sure we remember.
Okay.
Okay?
And then how many did you do? 4?
I think I did 5. You know, start right here, roughly.
Are you sure you did 5?
I did. I think so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
It's.
I was right.
I'll give you that one. Look how well that comes out.
Yeah. I don't know how I work in these conditions. Okay. Now, there's something else that we need to put pocket holes on. The stretchers. Mm-hmm. Now, these are easy. Okay. Where's that? You took my pencil.
I did.
All right, I got another one. Mine's red. Okay. So let's mark the front on this one too. Just so we remember. Okay. Mm-hmm. One of these is going to go in the back. One of them is going to go in the front. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, since this is going across this direction, okay, not only do we need to join it in the side, like this, with 2 pocket holes, mm-hmm. This one, we need to add some across here too. And for this, we'll just do 3. Why do we need to do that? Because this is going to be in the front at the top.
For the face frame?
Yep, and that's how you're going to attach the face frame.
And then does this need the back ones for the back? Or?
It does not, because we are actually going to it. That's a very good question as well. We're going to attach the base or the back directly to it and screw in from behind.
Okay.
So we'll have the same connection either way. We don't need to use pocket screws for that. So we're going to mark those. And I'm really just doing 2 on this because when you use the Craig pocket hole jig, you'll actually just be able to put that in there and then just use 2 of the holes and drill, boom, you're done. You flip it around. Okay, so that's going to go in the back. This one's going to go in the front. Let's go ahead and just mark that so we know which one the front is, which also those markings are. Now, since we did that at the top, what do we need to do on this? This is
like
the front.
do them for the base?
Correct. We need to do these so that we can screw the face frame on from underneath as well. Right?
Yep.
So we've got everything marked. And now we can actually start doing pocket holes. I do want to highlight one thing. At this point, we could, if we wanted to, add some shelf pin holes.
Okay.
Because in this video, we will do that just to show that if you wanted an adjustable shelf on the bottom portion that the door is on, this is how you could do it. And so I have a jig that we'll use for that. You could do it now, but we don't have to. I actually prefer to do that in this scenario using one of those jigs after the cabinet is assembled and the back is not on and the face frame is not on.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll talk about that. But I bring that up because that is something that you may want to do before you actually go assembling these cabinets. Another really good example is if we were doing a thin back panel that needed to be slid in, you would need to cut those grooves first, correct? Yep.
But what would be a scenario where you would say, put those adjustable holes in now?
If I was doing frameless cabinets.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would use a completely different system. Or if I was doing base cabinets that had, it was all drawers or something like that, I would use the LR32 system.
Okay.
Which would just give me a whole bunch of holes, but that is easier to do beforehand. But again, it would be just as easy to do it with the Craig jig as well, but we're gonna do it after it's assembled.
Okay.
So, we need to do pocket holes. We are going to use this. Maybe. All right. Yeah, this is really great. Very different from, remember when we started, very different from the pocket hole jig that I used to. This is a much nicer machine to use. One of the reasons is because it automatically compensates for the thickness of the material.
Okay.
So the only thing you have to do is set the depth on the actual drill bit itself.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I push this down, it would just stop it wherever it is, and it figures it all out. It's great. We definitely want to make sure that we use some dust collection, so we don't have dust going everywhere. What I'll do is I will show you kind of just how it works in general, and then I'll let you go through and do it. I think the easiest way to do this is that we'll start on these pieces here, and then we'll move on to the bigger stuff. All right, so we're going to start on these. And before I was telling you, one of the benefits to this machine is that I don't have to like unclamp it and move it. In this scenario, I can use these two outer holes, and they're spaced far enough.
Okay.
See it? I just push this down like this and lock it down, and now it's going to hold it, right?
Is the hole going to be where that line is?
Correct.
Okay.
That's the center line of the hole. So here and here. And again, in this, we don't need to like, oh, it got to be an inch from this side. It just doesn't matter. So here, all we're going to do, one, we're going to hit the dust collection, and we'll drill our two holes, and then we'll unlock it.
Okay.
Now, one thing that I really like about this is how effective the dust collection is. It just works really, really, really well. So it makes it very easy. And then now, see?
Nice.
Two evenly spaced holes. And then what we would do is, this is where people can get confused, right? Because you do this, and somebody will take it out and they'll go like this, and now they're not on the same side. So that's why marking everything is so helpful. But what we can do here is we can just go down and make these ones. Now, again, we're not super concerned if it's right on that line. It does not matter. And in this case, I'm probably just going to use the center one, right? Because that's what I'm kind of visually eyeballing where I want it to go. And just like that.
What if this one had been lower and they would have like...
If it would have happened here, it wouldn't have mattered. If it would have happened here, it would have mattered.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, that screw is going to go in at that angle, and it's going to be all the way into that hole. So I've had times where I've been a little bit close, but it doesn't change. I've actually had ones that crossed each other purposely, and they work just fine. So that one is done. Now it's your turn.
And on this one, we only need the ones...
Correct. Just where the marks are. Yep. All right.
Good to go.
Good to go. All right, so those two are done. Now we just have a whole bunch that we need to go on the other ones. Now, I do want to point out that like once you get into the larger pieces, so I say we just start with the sides so we can lay them back out the way they need to go. They can be a little bit more challenging to manage. And one thing that you can do with this, and I need to build one for it because I don't love how it slides around. I want to build a base that this sits on and then lines up with the dog holes and it keeps it steady. But we'll work through it, and yeah, we'll get all those ones done. So let's do that one first. All right, great job. So that's all the pocket holes that we're gonna need for the actual cabinet carcass.
Okay.
We'll use it again once we go to the face frame.
Face frame.
Yeah, so if you want to put that hose over there.
What's next?
Now we're going to put it together.
Okay.
And this is where it'll get a little bit more technical. A little bit, not really, but there are definitely some key things that we can discuss. What we want to do, you want to take that. You can actually lean that up against the miter saw station if you want, because we won't need that for a little bit. Okay, so we know the one that has the pocket holes is on the outside, and we also know that this is the front. Okay, so what we want to do is go ahead and grab the bottom piece. Now remember, it's going together like this, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what we want to do is go ahead and flip this around like this, because I want this to be the front. This will make sense. There you go. Now let me see that. The reason I did that is because I want access to these holes over here. If you come over here, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I couldn't have done it the other way because we would have been on the other side of the table. But with pocket holes, it can be a little challenging at times to get these to stay steady across here. The reason for that is because the screw's going in at an angle, okay? And when the screw goes in at an angle like that,
It turns.
it has a tendency to push or shift it. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we want to make sure that it's flush in the front and it's flush in the back. And if you cut your panels properly, then you know it should be. But we want to make sure that we're not skewed, because that'll affect things later on. The next thing I'm looking for is that it's flush across here, which in the front and the back it is. But you'll see here in the middle, see how it's like it goes up a little bit? That just means that the board is like curved like this. So in that scenario, what I like to do is move that middle portion to the center, and then I can use this clamp, which this bar right here goes inside of your pocket hole. You squeeze it down, and now it is clamped in place, and that's nice and tight. And up here in the front, it actually shifted it a little bit to where it's nice and flush now, all the way across. But it's a little bit proud here. So the reason I like to pull that close in the center is because when I go to screw this one in, I can actually manipulate this one and then clamp it down and screw it in. Now, since we're working with it off the table a little bit, something that we can do is we can just make sure it stays steady to the table.
Okay.
That way this whole part is actually going to be a lot easier. Like I said, when we are placing these screws in there, it does have the tendency to want to move a little bit. If you were using glue, you'd put the glue on at this point, put it together, right? Now, I want to make sure that this doesn't move, okay? So what we can do, we can take a larger clamp like this and just apply just the slightest bit of pressure, making sure that we're still flush all the way across here. So what I'm going to do now is I would screw in these two, then I would come over here, do the same thing on this side and do these two, and then I can pop this out and we'll do the center.
Okay.
Now the screws that we're using for this are 1.25 inch, which is the standard screw length that you're going to use when you're using 3/4 inch material. So this just goes in like that. It's a square drive screw, and since it's already secured, it shouldn't shift at all. And if you have your clutch settings, set properly on here, it'll make that beeping noise that you heard, and it'll just stop it. Okay, now we'll go ahead and clamp this other side.
But this is not flush. Or does it not matter?
No, it actually does matter. Go ahead and grab that rubber mallet. Should be, yep. See, that's a good thing you pointed out. You check. It's not flush here, so what you can do, while it's under a little bit of tension, you can knock it back in and make it nice and flush.
Okay.
Good catch. You built better cabinets than I would. One thing that is important with this piece right here is when you loosen this, you don't want to just slam that thing open, because you see what it did there? It pushes it away a little bit. So it can break that. So you just want to be careful when you're opening it and closing it. And then at the end of the day, if you just wanted to use a standard clamp and follow the same steps, you can as well. Now we're going to do something a little bit different. The way I like to do it with that first one is just to make sure that that bottom is nice and aligned. However, for this one, it would be really difficult if you've tried to flip this thing over because you'd be falling all over the place. You'd have to build a jig or whatever. So here you can just stand it up straight, okay? This is the front. We know we just have to match the front, like this. And now here, we're just gonna drill in from the side over, okay? Now, this is a pretty easy one to do because where's that big clamp? There's gonna be times where everything is not perfectly square, and that's okay. People freak out and overly obsess about the panels being perfectly square and stuff. There's a lot of that you can work out during the assembly, and not only the assembly, also the install. And something just happened that I wanna point out. As I started to tighten this board started to shift. That's because I'm too far back.
Okay.
You actually wanna put that bar right over it. And what we can do here, see how it just shot it back?
Yeah.
I'm gonna tighten this down like this. And this bottom panel, you can already tell right now that this bottom panel is kind of bowed and twisted just a little bit, because theoretically this whole thing should be lining up right now and it's not, right? So we can go ahead and drive a single screw up here. I'll let you drive that one in if you want. Perfect. So now that's lined up. From here, what we would do is we would go like this. Go ahead and grab that rubber mallet. And we're a little proud. And we're just gonna work our way down. So now that second one is lined up real good. Go ahead and drive one in there.
Why is it called proud? It makes no sense.
Proud, I don't know. That's actually a really good question. We should ask Patrick. He'll probably know the answer. Isn't that drill great? It just stops for you. All right, so we're a little bit tight. Is that proud? Is it proud?
A little proud.
It's a little proud.
Crazy Americans.
Now you don't want to tighten it down too much before you do that because you'll just be sitting there banging it, and you've got to hit it harder and harder and harder, and then it just goes too far.
That's what she said.
All right, moving on. Okay.
Let me double check your work.
See here, you see how I just used the bar of the clamp down at the bottom just to line everything up? All right, go ahead and put that one in. And then of course, I'm gonna have to flip this around. And this is an extreme example.
Because of the back being so bowed.
Because it is a little bit bowed. Typically, you can probably clamp this like here and do like these three. But you gotta work with the materials that you have. And we'll go and put in that last one. All right. Super. Now, we can lift this up. And look at that. We almost have a box. Bones it. All right, so we've got it standing straight up. There's a couple of things you can do here. Next is going to be the stretchers.
Okay.
And that's going to complete.
You mean the stretch?
Stretchers, that's exactly what I mean. We can lay this down again. And this is the easiest way to do it, where we can do it all in one shot. This is the back, so we're focused on the front. Which stretcher do we need for that?
This one?
We do, and it needs to be angled like this, correct?
Correct.
Because that's going towards the front. So this is pretty simple. We can place this in here like so, and then we can use the clamp. Like you see, actually we're gonna go this way so we don't get in the way of the screws there. And now a benefit to doing it this way is you see how everything's flat against the table? You can make sure that everything lines up perfectly because of that. Make sense?
Yes.
So we're gonna tighten this down. Let's just check. No, it needs to come out a little bit, so let's loosen it. What did I do with the mallet? Thank you, ma'am. Okay. And in all honesty, like, absolute perfection like this isn't totally necessary, but it just makes the entire install process a lot easier. So now that's really, really tight, we can go ahead and just do those screws. I'll let you do that. Here, let me hand you the screws. Do what I do.
Like Leo used to say.
Do what I do best.
Is there a way, like, should you do one here and then one here, or does it not matter?
In this setup, no, because it's clamped and it's not going to move.
Wow.
The reason that happened is because you're slightly up at an angle, right? So you don't want to go in like this if the screw's going like this.
Okay.
So you should be good.
No.
Once you get it back in there.
That was not good.
Okay, so the reason that happened is because the screw just slightly misaligned based on your original entry, but it's okay because it's not protruding out of it,
Okay.
and that's going to be covered by a countertop.
So is that better then?
Is the tip of the screw itself actually here? Pull it out. We want to make sure that the tip actually goes. See that? See, that's where it should be starting,
Okay.
right? And now it should drive in a lot easier. All right.
So is it better to put the screw in first then?
I think so, yes. And what I'll usually do is I'll put both of them in, and then I can just go from there. Okay, now one thing that can happen, it didn't happen here obviously because we have the clutch set at the proper setting. If you have it too strong, what can happen is that screw can continue to go through and protrude on the outside. So you don't want that. Now, what would be the easiest way to do the back one?
Flip it.
Exactly. Flip it over. And we can do this one. Do you want to do this part?
Yes.
You want to try it?
Okay.
This way.
That was good.
That was good. All right. So we'll tighten that down. Go ahead and put in all 4 screws and then just drive those screws home.
That to me is a weird angle to screw. Like, I don't like how that. I don't know why.
Now, I'll just show you something real
Okay.
quick. So what you were saying about it doesn't feel natural.
Yeah.
You know, it's a tendency to come in like this, right? But what you want to do when you're in line with it, you can kind of feel it because you're going to put a little tension on. And then it's really just about giving a little bit of pressure from behind, right? So you can't be out here and do it. See how it's turning the screw? You just want to get in there almost to where this is touching the wood, like this, and then goes right in. Okay.
Like this?
Yeah, but lower it. There you go. Perfect.
Okay.
See that?
Yeah. Like that?
Oh.
There we go.
So when that happens, so this is a square drive bit. When that happens, it just means that it came out unseated. Maybe you didn't put enough pressure. You don't want to continuously keep doing that because it'll end up causing it to not only round this over, but also the screw.
Okay.
So as soon as you hear that, just back out. All right, let's stand it up. Not bad, yeah. Not bad, huh? All right, before I was telling you that we could put shelf pin holes in this, and that's what we're gonna do. And this right here is a Craig shelf pin jig. The holes are spaced 32 millimeters, so it's actually compatible with doing like hinges for doors if you need
Okay.
to, right? which this cabinet will have those on there, but we will do that a different way. Now, if I put this all the way down here, right now we're in the back of the cabinet, and this has this really cool removable thing, so you can do the front or the back.
Okay.
Right, you can switch it.
Oh, yeah.
It's a reference to make sure that they're spaced properly on the internal portion of the cabinet. So by using this, it's going to put that row of holes the same distance from the back that they are on the front.
Okay.
Right? So what we're going to do now, we're going to have a drawer, and there's going to be a door. So here we're just going to roughly estimate where we would want it. Right? It's not as common to have adjustable shelves like this inside of a base cabinet in kitchens now. Usually they're pull-out trays. But this is another way to do it. So, you know, we're going to have about this area right here that's going to be taken. You're going to have a face frame portion right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do one here, and then we're just going to use that as a reference hole and drill the rest. So we'll have a total of 6 holes.
Okay.
And they're roughly centered in there. And as long as the other side is referenced the same way, it doesn't matter, they'll all line up.
Okay.
So we're going to start down in the bottom with this against it. And this is a 5mm bit. You can do a 1/4 inch or you can do a 5mm bit. We're doing a 5mm, and that is what is going to drill the perfect hole for the shelf pins, which the diameter of that is 5mm.
Okay.
Now we can take this, and this is a locating pin. I can put that in there, and now it's holding it steady. I do like to put my hand against it though, because this can shift. So now we're just going to do the other 5.
Did you have to set the depth on that thing too?
Good question. Yes, but they make it super easy. You basically just slide this all the way up to the top.
Okay.
And then, you know, I tested it out the first time I used it to make sure that it was good. Okay, so we've got them on that part. What do you think we're going to do now?
Do the other side?
We're going to do the other side. And what we can do, so we don't have to keep flipping this thing back and forth, we could go over to the other side and do it.
Okay.
If you want to do that.
Sure.
Okay.
So I start with the top one, right?
Correct. Wait.
Oh, we need to flip the thing.
That's actually correct. I was looking at it, I'm like, this doesn't look like it's going to line up. So it just slides. There you go.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah. Now, do you know why that wouldn't have lined up the same?
Because this is a different...
Correct. In this scenario, yeah. So it's important to switch that over to the other side, and I should have caught that, but...
All right. This one, right?
You caught it. Yep.
And then...
Yep. There you go. Bam.
Okay.
Super. Now we do the other side. All right. Now, let's go ahead and put on the back.
Okay.
All right, so we want to make sure first that this is the back, which it is in fact the back. Now that we're at the backing piece, so this is a way to do it,
Okay.
right? There's some benefits to doing a solid panel in the back like this. One, you don't have to cut a rabbet to recess a panel into. Two, you don't have to cut grooves to slide a thinner panel into. It gives you a little bit more strength and holding capacity in the back of the cabinet. Now, one of the reasons I chose to do it this way is because we are going to use undermount drawer slides. But since it's a face frame application, we need something in the back of the cabinet to mount our bracket to. This will all make sense when we get to doing the drawer. And a 1/4 inch panel is typically not enough to do that, right? So this is going to be more than enough, and it solves a lot of problems. There's one other benefit, and that is the fact that it can help ensure that your box is nice and square, because as long as your panel's square, if there's anything that's not square with this, it can be manipulated in this scenario, right? So the moment of truth is obviously me finding out whether or not my measurements were right, and check it out. I mean, it is dead on perfect, right? So if I wanted to have an air on this portion, I would rather it be a little bit bigger,
Okay.
because then I could use a flush trim bit and go around it and flush it all up. But in this scenario, at least back here, it's perfect. And up here, it's pretty dang close, right? Pretty
Okay.
dang close. So the box itself is nice and square. Now, how are we going to attach this? Well, again, we have the same issue. We have a pre-finished surface on a non-finished surface, so we're not going to worry too much about glue in this scenario. What we are going to do, though, is pin this thing in place. And what I like to do first is I like to use this. In all cabinet construction that I do, unless I was like attaching a face frame and I wanted to use pin or brad nails, I'm going to use a narrow crown stapler.
Okay.
Okay, it has like twice the holding power of a brad nail, and it just does a better job. It's just a stronger connection. But we're only doing that to pin it in place. Then we're going to go back and we're going to add screws to it.
Okay.
All right. Now, with one of these, let me take off the air
Jesus.
just so I don't. I probably should have warned you that that's going to happen. There we go.
That
That's not a good
puts-
spot for it. Maybe you should just hold it. So, man, I'm sidetracked now. All right. So the narrow crown stapler, it's a U shape basically, a really long U shape.
Okay.
Let me show you.
What if somebody doesn't have something like that?
Then you could use a brad nailer.
Okay.
Right, and most people don't have narrow crown staplers. If you're building a lot of cabinetry, I would say absolutely get one. But that's what it is.
Okay.
It's like a long, narrow U shape. So think almost two narrow brad nails is what it kind of boils down to, and it has that curvature that holds that thing in place. It comes out in this direction like this, side by side. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that wherever you're putting them in, you want to be parallel to whatever the thing is. So what I wouldn't want to do is I wouldn't want to do this. Because if these hit something and have a tendency to go out, they're going to come out of the material, as opposed to if I'm doing it like this, they can go whatever direction they want. And the same thing applies to the brad nail.
Okay.
Okay? So let's go and hook this back up. Careful, it might be loud.
Just put a disclaimer on there.
Yeah. So what we're going to do here is I'm just going to get this nice and close. Now, word to the wise, you don't want to like have your fingers in really bad spots where it could hurt it. Right there is not, right? I'm just trying to split that 3/8 inch, but I'm not worried about my finger being here, right? I mean, you can go even further over if you really want to be safe. So now that's held in place, very strong. I'm perfectly flush down here. I'm perfectly flush. What helps is if you come to the edge here just a little bit so I can get that end right on there. I'm gonna have to flip this over because the edge of the table there. So now I have a good baseline.
Okay.
If I wanted to, I could go here. We don't need a ton, right? Because we're also gonna put screws in it. So now if we come down here to this end, make sure everything lines up. And that did not go in the full depth. There's a possibility it could have hit a screw in there. That's fine. What we're going to do is we're just going to put another one. And also sometimes if you feather the trigger, and what I mean by that is like you anticipate the nail coming out, and this is with anything, you anticipate it's coming out, you kind of just like, it doesn't activate all the way. And then of course the next one comes out perfectly. So then we'll just do some across here. Actually, you know what? You do some across the top.
Okay.
Let's do one.
It's a real proof of trust in a marriage.
Yeah, I gave her the gun. Just don't point it at me. Just to give you a heads up, it will come out of
Yeah.
here, so it might
Okay.
freak out. Let's go ahead and put one right here.
Right here?
Yep. No, yep, there you go.
Do I need to push?
Push and pull the trigger.
Good?
Yep. And then let's just do one right there. It's fun, right?
Sure.
Sure. All right, let's do, I'm gonna turn it just because that way
Okay.
you can...
Yes. Does that matter? That's like flush.
No, it's just slightly proud, but that's just the stretcher that's a boat a little bit. All right, we'll go ahead and do it like this. And then here, just put kind of the same areas, one here, here, and there. And there's already one on the end.
Are you going to pull that other one out?
No, I'm not going to pull it out. I'm going to talk about that right now. You're in my way. So this one that didn't go all the way in, for whatever the case is, I can actually see, I'm pretty sure it hit a screw. So all I'm going to do is just use a hammer, and now it's set.
Okay.
Right? So if it hit a screw, what it just did, it just went around it a little bit. Okay, that's the box is constructed. Now we're going to add some screws. So let's get into that. What I would do for this is I use what's called a countersink. That's right. A countersink bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one down in the corner. That's why I don't shoot the nails in the corner, because this I don't have to worry about it splitting anywhere.
Okay.
So you just kind of like center it, on the 3/4 material. And what a countersink does is it makes that pocket there. Mm-hmm. The screw, can you please hand me a screw? Thank you. Goes into, and then it allows it to be nice and flush with the surface.
Okay.
For a nice clean install. For this cabinet, let's just plan on doing one in the center, one on the end, one at the center, one on the end, one at the center, so on and so forth.
Okay.
So you want to do it?
Yes. Okay. So is that?
Yep, that looks great.
Okay. And then do I go on this side or stay on this side?
Stay to the right side of the staple.
Okay.
More in the corner. There you go. What do you think of this box that you've made so far?
I think it's a pretty good box.
Yeah. See, so you want to redo the kitchen?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. I guess I'll be building other things, everyone. All right, so something I wanted to highlight before we go on to the last part of this video, which is the face frame, is I get asked constantly from people, because the way I assemble cabinets, I traditionally we use narrow crown staples and screws, and they're visible on the sides. Mm-hmm. And they always want to know, if this has another cabinet next to it, it doesn't matter, because it's hidden, you're never going to see it. It's irrelevant. However... It's
a moot point.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a cow's opinion.
If a cow's opinion?
Yeah, it's moot.
Oh.
You don't watch Friends.
No, I don't watch Friends. Anyways, let me get back to work here. All right, so you would put a decorative panel on it. Okay. Right? Or you would construct it differently. Or, there's lots of different ways that you could do it. But, so don't be afraid. I guess what I'm trying to say to the people watching this video, if you do assembly like this, it's fine. Just account for the fact that maybe you have to put a 1/4 inch decorative panel over the top of it to cover it, which that would come into account when they're doing the face frame. You would just account for that if you're scribing it to a wall, whatever the case is, right? There are a lot of different ways to do this. However, it absolutely would just be covered with a decorative panel.
Boom.
Face frame time. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make the face frame.
Okay.
This is my least favorite style of cabinets.
That's why I have to do it.
That's why you have to do it. Now, I'm more of a fan of the frameless, and at this point, you're done, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, you would have to edge band this, but that's for another video. So, there's a couple different things that you can do here. So, we know that top rail that goes across obviously has to be flush with this, right? Something that you will sometimes see in base cabinets is they won't put the bottom rail flush to the bottom of the cabinet because you have the toe kick there, so it can be down, and that just provides you to have a smaller lip right here, right? Because you're bringing the board down. However, we're not going to do that. I don't like that. I don't care that this will create a 3/4 inch lip here. Okay. If anything, it'll keep stuff, in the shelf. So really, really simple to get the measurements for this. The material that we're going to be using is this right here. This is, when we're building this cabinet, we're assuming that we are building it to be painted.
Okay.
Okay? And the only thing that would get painted would be the face frame, the door, and the drawer front, right? Now, the reason I'm using poplar is because poplar's a great wood to paint. And it's relatively inexpensive, what they would classify as a hardwood. So these are going to be like this. So we know that we need 2 that are going to be cut at this distance, and we know that the height of this cabinet is what?
735?
768 millimeters
Close.
or 30.5 inches. So we know that we're going to have to cut 2 of these at 30.5 inches. Now we need 3 to go across, 1 for the top, 1 for the bottom, and then we need to have a separation for the drawer and the door. So there's going to be another rail that goes across the center. So how do we determine that? It's very, very simple. Take the tape measure. We're going to measure across. It's exactly 18 inches. I want to have a 1/4 inch reveal on the side. So that means that rail is going to stick out a 1/4 of an inch. That means it will stick over this edge of the cabinet by 1/2 inch. So 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, and an inch is 1.5 inches, or a 1/4 inch, 1.5 inches. Does that make sense?
No.
Okay. 1.5 inches wide is the rail. We want it to be a 1/4 inch past the edge.
What rail? The face frame rail? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
So if you look over here, let's do it on this side.
Yes.
If you look over here, see behind
Yes.
it?
Yes.
See what I'm talking about now?
Yes.
So that needs to be a 1/4 inch on that side, needs to be a 1/4 inch on this side. So if this is 18 inches wide, then we need to add 1/2 inch.
Right. 1/4 on each side.
Correct. That is 18.5 inches.
Okay.
Now we subtract the width of these, which is 1.5 inches, times 2. So what's our number? 15.5. And then we start doing some pocket holes. You ready?
Let's do it.
You want to cut them?
Yep.
Let's do it. Here we are at the miter saw station. This is how we're going to cut everything. Anytime I'm taking a board that's like a fresh board, I'm always going to cut off the end because 1, this is very rough, and 2, I want to establish a clean cut edge, right? So it's just going to give us a better product. In a scenario like this is a sliding miter saw, but we don't need to slide it. We just simply need to turn it on, come down, make the cut, right? Okay, now we need to get a measurement. And if only I had my tape measure. What did we say? 30.5, right?
Yes.
Let's do the long ones first.
Okay.
So come down here, and we are right about there. Now, some miter saw stations, they have like scales and stuff built
Okay.
into it, but I don't need that, right? I just use a tape measure, measure it, and cut.
Okay.
Here's your tape measure back.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. So this is going to slide down all the way, and it just butts up against that. You don't need to slam it into it, and then we're going to lock it down. This is a nice little clamp. Push this down, lock it, and then it's ready to make the cut. You don't have to have your hands
Okay.
anywhere near it.
Ready?
I am ready. All right, now let me just do a quick test.
Okay.
I don't know if they'll be able to see this on camera. And it's good. So slide it on down. Make sure that it's, nice up against the fence. There you go. So we got our 2 vertical ones.
Okay.
Now, let me see this. Maybe we'll get lucky.
No.
No, not even close. Wait, that's mine. We'll start on that end there. Now for this one, since you are cutting off that little edge, actually okay, cool. Since you're cutting off that edge, you'll just hold it right here and you'll use your left hand for this. Now, I do want to point something out real quick.
Okay.
So we're going to make an adjustment.
Okay.
All right. What we're going to do is we are going to put this clamp on this side. And the reason why is because, do you see how this is angled up? That actually just put a slight angle on this.
Okay.
And when we go to put everything together, it's not going to line up right.
Okay.
It'll actually cause it to twist back. Simplest solution for that is we just use the clamp,
okay.
and now it's held down. So obviously we're going to need to just slide it over just a bit. And now we can make the cut, and then we'll just move the clamp back over. Okay, what did we say?
15 and a half.
15 and a half. Go. Slide it on over. And we've got to switch this back over to the other side. So easy to do. And there you go. We got 3 of those. One. Next step, we are back to the Craig jig for some pocket holes. Now, this one's going to be a lot more simple.
Okay.
We don't really need to mark anything, right? Yeah, we really don't need to mark anything. Like these pieces right here, you know, they're all going to be straight. Anytime you have longer pieces, though, it is helpful to take a look at them, because if there's any kind of like bow that goes outward, you want to account for that. So let's just say, for example, this was bowed like this. I would probably put this on the left-hand side, and then when I assemble everything,
pull it together.
yeah, because it'll be a frame, it'll all bounce off of whatever, you know, the straight one is. Like this one right here is like perfectly straight. So you want to put the bow on the inside, because when you put these stretchers in there, you're spreading it basically. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you'd have the top, bottom, and then you just wedge the other one in and it would push it out. These are all going to be good. We don't need to measure anything. What we want to do, though, is this is going to be a time where we use the 2 that are side by side, right? Because it is close.
Yeah.
But because this is a common size for a face frame rail, right, it allows us to do 2 side by side. So go ahead and grab the drill, and if you could grab the dust collection hose. Plug that in. Let me get some slack here. I'll go ahead and do this one, and then you can do the others. Okay. I want to do something on this project. And there we go. Using 2.
Are we only putting it on the short sides?
Yes, we don't have to do anything at all with
these. Because we're screwing
these.
into the long ones.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. So we only have these 2 to do.
Okay.
So I'll let you go ahead and do those. Remember before I was telling you about like the bow? This one does have a little bit of a bow in it, and this is an easy way for you to really quickly look at it. So if I pinch them together here, see how there's a gap at the ends? So when I lay this out, that's how I'm going to lay it out, because it'll help when we put that one in. Does that make sense? That it'll push them apart.
So you want them to go like this and not like
Correct.
Okay.
Because, I mean, theoretically, you could pull them together. There are instances where if it was going like this, that I would probably prefer. But the thing you have to remember, if it's a very slight, it doesn't matter. If it's a big, yeah, we're bringing it together with screws, but over time, what is it going to do? It's always going to be pulling against each other, as opposed to this is never going to do that, right? But if you had a really a severe one on the inside, it could also be a problem because it could put force out on the bottom and top. So we're just laying these out like this. What we're going to do first is we're going to put the top and the bottom one, and then I'm going to show you how we'll go about adding the other. Do you know what these are?
Bench dogs?
They use bench dogs. Okay. I'm very impressed. So these are stops that go in the MFTs. So the reason I put those in is because you see I can now bring the entire thing here, and I know it's perfectly straight all the way across. And so from this point, we would clamp it. However, let's do a little bit of glue on this one.
Okay.
All right, so I just got my measurement. What the glue that we're going to use. Now, why is it okay to use glue on this versus the other?
Because it's not pre-finished.
It's not pre-finished, exactly correct. And because it's a face frame and it's a joint that could move a little bit over time, we want to just do something to help bond it. And then the Kreg screws actually just act as a clamp while it dries. I like to use Titebond Quick and Thick for a lot of applications. My favorite reason is because of how clear it dries. Much clearer than other materials. But it's great because not only does it set very fast, but it is also very thick. So when I'm applying glue and I flip it over, well, guess what? It's not going to roll off like any other glue would. And I'm just going to spread that around a little bit like that. And then we can put this piece back in like this. Push these together. Make sure it's nice and tight where it needs to be. Right? And then I can go ahead and clamp it in place. Now we don't need a ton of clamping pressure, just enough. So you see how that started to squeeze that glue out? That's what we're looking for, okay? And then we want to make sure that it's nice and flush. So that's where we can use our hammer again. Looks like that's pretty good. Maybe this could go in just a bit. There we go. Now we can go ahead and screw these in. Brings everything nice and tight together. See how that one has like a clicking noise? So that's different from that electronic clutch on the newer drill. And now I can bet you guess what we do next.
The same thing again?
The same thing again. We just get it set up. Would you like to do this one?
Sure. So first we do glue.
Yep.
Our favorite glue.
Favorite glue. Titebond Quick and Thick, everyone. I'm a savage. I just
I know.
wipe it on the table. I don't want you to have to worry about that.
Oh, I saw you do that.
Dab a little bit off there. There you go. Let me get your finger,
Wipe my
ma'am.
finger.
Yep. I'm really not doing a very good job.
Thank you.
Now, if you want me to hold it while you clamp it in place, we can do that. That way, it's 2 birds, 1 stone. Okay.
Is that enough?
Yeah, it's plenty. Get the rest of the glue.
I'll expect you to do that in the kitchen now too.
I can't make any promises there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, next we are going to put the last stretcher in, cross member, and we want to make sure that this is all even. It's really common 4.5 inches or so, 5 inches or so opening for the upper drawer because we're going to do a 4-inch deep drawer when we build one. So the way that we do that is we just cut a spacer. So this right now, I marked 5 inches right there. So I'm going to cut this. And now I can use this as my spacer to get it aligned, right? Because now I can put this in here,
Okay.
like so. And make sure that it lines up. And then now, I mean, that's in there nice and tight. Again, because of that bow, it actually wedged it really nice. So from here, we would just go ahead and put it in. Let me dab just a little bit of glue on there. See how nice and even that came out? So what we're going to do first is we're going to do one side, screwing it in, and then we'll shift this over and do the other side. So let's see, do you have, you got one more? I'll do this one. Now this should just pop out. Move it down here and see how it's not exactly the same. Now it is. Go ahead, and you want to drive it in, you want me to do it?
You can do it.
I can. Pop this out, and now, look at that. We have a face frame. Now we got to put it on.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Real fast, you can take an opportunity now just to like sand it down real quick and get like the stickers if they're being a pain, or any glue that's already dried, because it's easier to do it now than before you put it on. See how much better that looks just from doing that really, really fast? Okay, we're gonna put the face frame on while this is standing upright. A couple of reasons why I like to do this. First, we're not gonna glue this one. You could, it'd be a perfect opportunity for you to do it, but for this video, we just don't need to. We have plenty of pocket screws that are gonna hold this thing together. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start on the sides. Now I want to put this up. Now it's nice and flush across the bottom because we're using the same surface, right? But I want to make sure that I've got roughly my 1/4 inch gap. And there we're really good. We're nice and even at the top. So go ahead and clamp it in between that first and second. Up a little bit. Up in between the first and second one. Yep.
Okay.
I'm gonna clamp that down nice and
Got my bases there confused.
nice and tight. Yep. And we need some screws. So we're gonna do the first 2, and then we'll go down and we'll do the bottom 2, and then we'll take the clamp off and we'll peg in the 3rd one.
Okay.
All right, now we're gonna go ahead and remove that clamp. We're gonna move it down to the bottom. Make sure that nothing's shifted. Now, something that's nice, one of the benefits, go down to the in-between, yeah. One of the benefits to face frame cabinets is if you have some sort of non-squareness, right, like something is slightly off, you can manipulate it quite a bit because you have the face frame, right? So that you can make the face frame perfectly square, the box may not be perfectly square. And I think this is probably a face frame full overlay door is probably an easier cabinet for most people when they start. Do you want to do those ones?
Sure.
Now we can go and put the last one in there. So any slight variation that we had at this point, we just eliminated it because we trued up the cabinet with the rigidness of this frame. So now this side is good to go. All we need to do is pop this back on there. And on this side, we could probably get away with just clamping it the one time.
Okay.
And just a few left, because remember we have them in the top and the bottom, right? Now, in all reality, we are super rock solid right now, but we put those 3 screws in there, and again, the benefit that we have now is that this is pushing it against the 2. We don't even need to clamp this one down. It shouldn't shift or adjust at all just because it's already so rigid. We'll flip it to the back. I'll let you do those ones. So you have officially built
A box.
a box. But, I mean, look at that. We spent a couple of hours, maybe 2 hours total, and you built this, right? First time, 0 experience. And now we have a really nice cabinet box. So the next step that we're going to do is we are going to make a door, and we're going to install that. So you're going to get opportunity to, we're going to do a flat panel door. So you're going to get an opportunity to do some edge banding, and you're going to get an opportunity to install some hinges. And then we're going to do a drawer, which we'll use the pocket screws for again, and we're going to be installing some drawer hardware. So what do you think? How do you feel? Good?
Actually, it was not as hard as I thought it would be.
No. We did it with very easily accessible tools. And look at this. I mean, it's a great cabinet. I would be 100% happy to have this in our kitchen. White oak, though. White oak. All right, everybody. So that is it for this video. If you want to see how this continues, well, then you got to come back next week. See you later.
Bye.